Imagine standing in the elevator on a Tuesday morning, staring at the back of his head, realizing you're about to risk your entire career for a guy who borrows your stapler. The tension is so thick you could cut it with a knife, and you're wondering if he feels it too, or if you've just completely lost your mind. But to understand how a harmless office friendship spirals into a life-complicating obsession, we need to go back to the beginning. Back to when you were just colleagues, sharing a laugh about a terrible meeting. You've probably heard the term work spouse thrown around casually by the coffee machine. It sounds innocent enough, doesn't it? A work husband is just someone who gets your frustrations, knows your coffee order, and helps you survive the 9-to-5 grind. But what happens when the lines blur? What happens when you wake up one day and realize that the highlight of your week isn't the paycheck, but the 5 minutes you spend chatting at his desk? You are not alone in this dilemma, and the statistics are actually staggering. Recent studies suggest that nearly 65% of people have had a workplace romance, and an even higher percentage admit to having a work spouse. But here's the tricky part that nobody tells you during onboarding. The human brain is terrible at distinguishing between shared stress and romantic compatibility. When you and your work husband are in the trenches together, battling unrealistic deadlines or venting about a difficult boss, your brain releases dopamine and oxytocin, the exact same bonding chemicals released during romantic intimacy. So let's break down exactly what is happening in your head right now. You aren't just dealing with a crush. You are dealing with the proximity principle on steroids. You see this person more than your actual family, your friends, or your real partner if you have one. You see them at their most competent, solving problems and handling crises. You rarely see them in their sweatpants, ignoring the dishes, or being grumpy on a Sunday morning. You are falling in love with a curated, professional version of a person, and that is a dangerous fantasy to indulge in. But here is the secret that HR doesn't want written in the handbook. Most work crushes aren't actually about the other person at all. They are about you. They are about boredom, validation, or a need for escapism from the mundane routine of your daily life. That spark you feel? It might just be the thrill of feeling seen in an environment where you usually feel like just a cog in the machine. Now, we need to assess the damage. You need to diagnose the severity of this situation before you make a move you can't take back. Ask yourself, do you dress up a little more on days you know he'll be in the office? Do you find yourself saving funny stories to tell him specifically? Do you feel a genuine pang of disappointment when he calls in sick? If you answered yes to these, you have moved past the friendly colleague zone and entered the limerence zone. Limerence is that obsessive, intrusive state of mind where you crave their reciprocation above all else. And this is where it gets messy. Because usually, one of three things is happening. Scenario A. You are both single, and this is a rom-com waiting to happen. Scenario B. One or both of you are taken, and you're dancing on the edge of an emotional affair. Or Scenario C. He is just a nice guy who thinks you're a great coworker, and you have projected an entire romantic subplot onto him that doesn't exist. Let's talk about the taken factor, because this is the most common complication with the work-husband dynamic. If you have a real partner at home, or if he does, the work spouse label is often used as a shield. It's a way to justify intimacy that would be considered inappropriate in any other context. You tell yourself, we're just friends, we just work together,
while you're texting him at 10 p.m. about a work thing that definitely could have waited until morning. You have to look at the text messages. That is the litmus test. If your real partner read your transcript with your work husband, would you feel guilty? Would you feel the need to explain or delete things? If the answer is yes, you aren't having a crush. You are having an emotional affair.
And the workplace is the perfect breeding ground for this because it provides a built-in alibi. You have to be together for 8 hours a day. It's the perfect cover for building an intimacy that threatens your real life. But let's assume you're single. Let's assume he's single. Why shouldn't you go for it? Why not turn the work husband into the real husband? Well, before you plan the wedding, you need to consider the office gossip economy. In every office, information is currency, and a romance between two colleagues is like winning the lottery for the office busybodies. The moment you cross that line, your professional reputation changes. You stop being Sarah from marketing and start being Sarah who's dating John. People will start analyzing your interactions. If you agree with him in a meeting, it's because you're sleeping together. If you disagree with him, it's a lover's quarrel. Your merit, your hard work, and your professional objectivity all get called into question. And that is a heavy price to pay for a date. However, the most shocking part of this dynamic isn't how it starts, it's how it ends. But before we get to the fallout, we need to talk about the power dynamic trap. If your work husband is your superior, or if you are his, stop the video right now. Do not pass go. There is no version of that story that ends well in the modern corporate climate. The power imbalance makes true consent murky and opens you up to legal liabilities that can torpedo your career in seconds. So, you've diagnosed the crush. You know the risks. Now, what do you actually do? You have 3 distinct options, and you need to choose one today, because living in this limbo is what causes the anxiety. Option 1 is the cold turkey approach. This is for when you know the crush is a bad idea. Maybe he's married, maybe you're married, or maybe he's your boss. You need to starve the crush. A crush is like a fire. It needs oxygen to burn. The oxygen in this case is intimacy and attention. You don't have to be rude, but you have to be boring. How do you be boring? You stop the extra chats. You stick to work topics. When he comes over to vent about his weekend, you politely listen for 2 minutes and then say, "Wow, that sounds rough. Hey, did you get a chance to look at those Q3 reports?" You pivot back to work relentlessly. You stop the after-work drinks. You stop the texting. It will feel painful at first, like you're going through withdrawal, but usually within 2 to 3 weeks, the chemical fog in your brain will lift, and you'll see him for who he really is, just a guy in a cubicle. Option 2 is the slow fade. This is for when you want to preserve the friendship but kill the romantic feelings. You start introducing cringe into the dynamic. Remind yourself of his flaws. Look at his dirty coffee mug. Listen to him chew loudly. Intentionally break the pedestal you've put him on. Humanize him to the point where the fantasy dissolves. But wait, there is a third option. Option 3 is the confession. This is the high-risk, high-reward play. If you are both single and you genuinely believe this is more than just proximity, you might decide to shoot your shot. But you have to do it strategically. You cannot do this at the office holiday party after 3 tequilas. You cannot do this in the break room. If you are going to cross the line,
You do it outside the office walls. You ask him for a coffee or a drink explicitly as a non-work event. You gauge his reaction. If he hesitates or tries to turn it into a group hang, you have your answer without having to suffer the humiliation of a verbal rejection. If he says yes, you take it slow. But be warned, if you date, you need to have the breakup talk before you even have the relationship talk. This brings us to the most critical point of the entire video: the breakup protocol. Imagine you date for 3 months. It's great. Then it falls apart. He dumps you, or you dump him. Now you have to walk into that office on Monday morning and sit 6 feet away from the person who just broke your heart. You have to sit in meetings and hear his voice. You have to watch him eventually start flirting with the new girl in accounting. Can you handle that? Can you maintain your professional composure while your internal world is crumbling?
Most people think they can, but they can't. This is why the old saying, "Don't dip your pen in the company ink," exists. It's not about morality, it's about logistics. It is a logistical nightmare to navigate a breakup when you share a Google Calendar. Now, let's zoom out and look at why you have a work husband in the first place. Often, these relationships form because we are overworked and undervalued. We seek camaraderie in the trenches. This crush might actually be a symptom of a larger issue with your job satisfaction. Are you clinging to this person because they are the only thing making your job bearable? If so, the solution isn't to date him. The solution might be to find a new job. Have you ever noticed that when you take a long vacation, or when one of you switches departments, the intensity of the feelings drops by about 90%? That is proof that the feelings are situational. It's a trauma bond formed by the shared misery of the workplace. Once you remove the shared enemy, the bad boss, the tight deadline, the bond often dissolves because you realize you actually have nothing in common with this person other than the office. But let's say you are convinced this is the real deal. You've weighed the risks, you've checked the HR handbook, and you're going for it. Here is your survival guide. First, discretion is key. Do not tell your other work friends. Do not tell your work bestie. People love to talk, and secrets in an office have a shelf life of about 5 minutes. Keep it entirely private until you are serious enough that it needs to be disclosed to HR. Second, you must set boundaries. No touching at work, no lingering looks, no inside jokes in meetings. You have to work twice as hard to appear professional because people are watching. You have to overcompensate to prove that your relationship isn't affecting your judgment. It is exhausting, but it is the price of admission. There is a psychological concept called transfer of arousal. It means that when your heart is racing from stress, like a looming deadline or a presentation, your brain can mistake that physical arousal for sexual attraction. You might be attributing the adrenaline of your high-pressure job to the person sitting next to you. Before you blow up your life, ask yourself, if we met at a grocery store and he was a stranger, would I still be this interested? Or is he just the best option in a room full of bad options? Let's talk about the work divorce. If stories to end the work marriage, meaning you pull back from the friendship, expect fallout. He you notice. He might get petty. He nods. Why ask, "Why are you being so quiet?" Or, "Are you mad at me?" You need to have a script ready. Something simple like, "I've just been really overwhelmed with this prospect and need to focus." Works wonders. It takes it about the work, not about him. It protects his ego and your sanity. You also need to consider your career trajectory. Is he in your direct path of advancement? If you break up, could he influence your promotion? Could he badmouth you to other veterans? These are not paranoid questions. They are strategic ones. Your career is your livelihood. It pays your rent, your bills, your future. Is a crush worth risking your social systems? And let's be honest about the work husband archetype. Usually, he's the guy who is your charming enough to be psychable, but doing dating enough to be a threat. Or maybe who's CBS rebel. Be careful that you honors outside the him, both because he's a distracting. Procrastination can mean sent as voice. You're not in love. You're just avoiding that secretary. Let's fast forward 5 years. If you pursuing this and are great, you're who's the rare supporter. But guests goes wrong. You might be the one who has to listen the company. In across every your advisors regarding recovery prescriptions that geography that core south, one person eventually levels. And stopics, it is usually the woman who seconds towards the career that over your youth, for a voting with others to vowed it deep so. Here you want of comfort can go into wood. I want you to run an equity. Treat 6 cups about you treating Bob from accounting or Karen from curiosity. Remove the sex attention, stop the flirty backs. Or does it crumble? You might find that the spark was largely generated by you. You were feeding the fire. Once you stop feeding it, you might realize he was just a guy who liked the attention, and you were just a girl who was bored. But there is a silver lining here. Having a work crush can actually be a productivity booster if you harness it correctly. Use that energy. Use the desire to impress him as fuel to crush your presentations. Dress better because it makes you feel confident, not just for him. Take that nervous energy and channel it into your career advancement. Let him be the muse, not the distraction. Think about the best-case scenario. Maybe he stays your work husband. Maybe you keep that boundary. You have someone to laugh with, someone to trust, but you keep it platonic. That relationship can be incredibly valuable. A true ally in the workplace is worth their weight in gold. Don't ruin a great alliance by trying to turn it into a mediocre romance. The friend zone at work is actually the safest, most powerful place to be. You get the support without the drama. You get the loyalty without the heartbreak. You get to keep your job and your sanity. It is also worth examining what this crush says about your life outside of work. If you are single, are you making enough effort to meet people in the real world? Or are you relying on the office to be your dating pool because it's convenient? If you are in a relationship, what is missing at home that you are looking for at desk 4B? The work crush is often a mirror reflecting our own unmet needs. Stop romanticizing the Jim and Pam narrative. For every Jim and Pam, there are 100 awkward flings that ended with someone crying in the supply closet. Real life doesn't have a scriptwriter ensuring a happy ending. Real life has quarterly reviews and awkward elevator rides. If you are absolutely sure If you feel it in your bones that this is your soulmate, then you have to be willing to lose the job. That is the trade-off. If you aren't willing to quit for him, then you shouldn't date him. That is the clarity you need. If he is worth the unemployment line, then go for it. If not, keep it in the friend zone. We are reaching the end of our shift here, and the decision is ultimately yours. But remember, the excitement of the secret, the thrill of the taboo, that fades. The awkwardness of a failed office romance lasts until one of you clears out your desk. Choose wisely. Your career is a marathon, not a sprint. And you don't want to trip over a hurdle you placed there yourself. One final thought to leave you with. The best work husband is the one who pushes you to be better at your job, not the one who distracts you from it. If he's holding you back, he's not a husband, he's an anchor. Cut the line and sail on. I want to hear from you on this one, because I know the comment section is going to be spicy. Have you ever turned a work husband into a real husband? And did it work out? Or was it a total disaster? Let me know your story in the comments below.